On this episode of Internet Business Mastery, we have part 2 of the interview with Darline Turner-Lee on Mamas on Bed Rest. And in the quick tip, we share with you a fun device to help information workers stay fit.
Welcome to InternetBusinessMastery.com, where you will learn to take control, make more money, and start an internet business today. Here are your hosts, Sterling and Jay.
Hey everyone, I'm Sterling.
And I'm Jay.
And we're on a mission to help you start your own internet business. Go to freevideogift.com to check out our video that teaches you the right way to start your very own internet business. So Jay, what's going on other than holiday madness? Or is it just holiday madness?
Well, it's nice to be coming to the end of the year, looking back on the goals that we've set for ourselves and realize that we've, met a lot of those goals, made some great improvements. It's a nice time to start looking forward to 2012. But as you know, we've been enjoying kind of a lighter fourth quarter, busted our behinds, worked hard earlier in the year, got some good things done. And it's nice to kind of get to this busy end of year time where you kind of, naturally want to spend a little more time with family and do some of the holiday fun things and be able to just kind of turn that faucet down a little bit and go, yeah, you know what, we're just going to be a little more chill for a while. So and then obviously we've got the baby coming up, as I've been talking about on the episode. So the last couple of weeks have all been about getting ready for holidays. For the first time, we're doing a holiday at our home because we have we've always had these like urban lifestyle apartments and the high rise, and it's kind of hard to like entertain people in that kind of a living situation. For the first time, we actually live in a space where it's like, oh, we've got extra bedrooms and we could have some people. So we're doing gearing up to have our first people come to us and have a holiday thing where we host everyone. And then, of course, getting ready for the baby coming in February. So I certainly have appreciated the fact that we've had that ability in our business to go, yeah, let's, just kind of slow it down a little bit for fourth quarter. So that's been nice. What's your holiday? How have your holidays been so far?
Well, I mean, the fact that the fourth quarter's been light on the old work, but we made a really nice amount of income. It actually reminded me of the just the mindset behind that. Like, we set up a lot of things in the first several quarters of the year to automate even more income generating things. So now we get to enjoy that.
Right.
Get to enjoy the fruits of our labor back then, rather than, again, as we've mentioned before, we're not getting hours for dollars. We're doing something that's going to pay us for years, just all the time. So, yeah, I mean, as I was, in a beach house in San Diego there for a week, we were making really nice money. While I was in New York, making nice money. At Thanksgiving, making nice money. And, all because of this model, the type of model where you're getting paid over and over again for something you do once, maybe twice. That's one of those things where I was just like going, this is an amazing model. I mean, if you think about, again, went back holidays when I used to work, I would get maybe the 23rd and 24th off, and maybe the day before New Year's Eve or the day after or something. I can't even remember. And, when that happens and you're like, well, next year's going to be exactly the same. There's no way to change that. Whereas with our business model, if we're like, we want a light fourth quarter, well, and we're even gearing up to make it so that our first quarter can be somewhat light because you've got a baby coming. So that there can be, you can go focus on that. And just the fact that we have the ability to do that is holiday magic.
Yeah, it's like magic. And who doesn't like a little magic at the holidays?
Yeah, there you go. Because so you just get to choose. I mean, obviously, with a business like this, you can absolutely choose what your next year is going to look like. So, if I wanted to go to the Bahamas for 2 weeks in February, we just make decisions to either work a little bit more for, a couple months in advance that preps for that. Or we figure out the different ways to do it, or I work for 1 hour while I'm there each day, as long as, a typhoon hasn't knocked out all the internet. In Belize, the internet was on and off. Who knows when it was. But anyway, I mean, that was one of the things, because for me, I'm going to, be with family and kids, and my kids get to stay with me for about a week and a half or so. And I'm just not going to work during that time. We're just going to play and have fun and do some unschooling stuff. And just enjoy it instead of thinking, I got to go right back to work. That one day off was great. But so anyway, I'm just feeling, I guess, back with the old Thanksgiving thing, still just feeling really thankful for this business model and making all the tough decisions back when I started going, ooh, is it going to work? I don't know. I hope so. I want to have control one day. And now to see that, that happening each year is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you there. Well, we've got a second part of our interview we did with Darline. She's got a lot more insights and inspiration to share. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
And now, the features segment.
What are some other pitfalls or just, I guess, difficulties or fears that you've run into along the way that have, threatened to hold you back, or maybe even at times held you back a bit? And then how did you overcome those?
I think approaching some of the big people, when I was researching for my DVD and doing some other things, I came across Judith Maloney at Case Western, and I just really wanted to talk to her. And I'm thinking, how do I do it? So I sent her a couple of emails that she totally blew me off. And, it's hard because really you're kind of cold calling this person saying, hi, I like your stuff. Can I talk to you? And they're like, who the heck are you? But I find if you press forward, and what happened with her was one day she finally did go, who are you? And why are you not calling me? Why are you emailing me? And I told her my story of having these high-risk pregnancies and what I was doing. And she just went overboard like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing it. And that's when it's been about a year and a half since I first contacted her, but it took me maybe a month and a half to kind of get her to respond back. But once I did, and once it was just a matter of when she finally, I guess, got sick of me sending her emails and said, well, who are you and what do you want? And it was really pretty snippy at first. And I blurted it out like, well, I'm this woman, and I'm doing this, and I've had these pregnancies, and I'm really concerned, and I read, this, and I could cite the articles of hers that I read, and you said this, and I agree with this, and as a result, I did this DVD. And she was just like, you just did this on your own? And I said, yes. Wow. And that's when we really clicked. And she was like, so what else do you do? And she went to my site and she was like, how do you do these radio things? And
nice.
It's been funny because she's definitely academic. So she, when she gets a new email program, she'll email me like, I'm not sure if you're going to get this, but, for us to have forged this relationship and everything, and I would say, that first blow-off can be kind of chilly, but if you really want to talk to the person, keep going and keep going. And I think my first mistake with her was not, I thought, well, she's not going to want to hear my whole story, so I just kind of wrote hi and gave her my name and, can I talk to you? It wasn't until she realized I wasn't some weirdo and actually had an interest in high-risk pregnancy and had some training in the medical field. And then she was like, oh, okay. So, looking back, I probably should have given more at the beginning. But if you stick with it and at some point you catch them on a good day or something and the next thing you know, like, hey, I'm working on a study with her. She's going for some $1 million NIH grant. She's like, oh, you want to be our community liaison? It's like, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, it's amazing, but it can be discouraging because, sometimes people will be really frosty or blow you off. And I think that was a lesson to really be clear up front. You don't want to send them a 10-page email, but really say who you are, what it is you do, why are you writing to them? And I hadn't done that at first. And that was a good lesson because now I can do it in maybe a couple of sentences and you do get a response.
Nice. Yeah, so and sometimes it does take some time and persistence. It would have been easy for you to go, oh, that person will never talk to me and never even try, or, and to kind of dismissed it. But bit by bit, those things do start coming together. I like that story.
Yeah.
Very cool. Any other pitfalls or fears or difficulties that you've run into along the way?
Well, I think just getting started is really scary.
Yeah, sure.
I even hesitated, I have to say, to do your program. Now, I have been trolling you for years. I remember listening to you do the New Gotham thing.
Oh, yeah, Gotham Cast? That was way back.
Way back. 'Cause I was on late. In fact, I don't even think I had kids. I think I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was up. So I was online, like, bored out of my mind, like, what can I find? And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I thought it was a radio show. And it was my husband who later said, oh, you like podcasts? I was like, I like what? And he's like, podcasts. I was like, what are podcasts? I had no idea even what it was, but I was...
You didn't know that's what you were listening to?
No, I thought they were like little radio blurbs on, and you're like, nice. I was big, fat, and pregnant and just sitting there listening to them because I couldn't sleep, I couldn't lay down, I couldn't sit up, so I was just kind of up. And then you did Podcast Underground.
Yeah.
And I still have all of those on my computer.
Nice.
Because that's how I figured out how to podcast. And it was...
Yeah.
And when I first looked at it, and it was talking about all this stuff and your lame file, and I was like, I feel lame. What am I talking? And I had to figure out, and I figured out how to configure my computer. And it was weird because, like, when I got married, I did email, and I wrote because I was a freelance writer. And now, here I was doing a lame thing, and I'm saying to my husband, hey, how do I, connect the lame to the, and he was like, what are you doing?
What are you talking about?
And here's this engineer, and he's like, what are you doing? Now, he doesn't podcast. He doesn't know how to podcast. So now, when something comes up, he's like, how do you work that podcast? So, but you can get overwhelmed because it was just a really different world for me. I was not techie in any way, shape, or form. Getting my email was a big thing for me. But I just decided, this sounds pretty cool. Like, because I was listening to you, and I'm like, you can just, like, talk to people on the radio. And I just kind of was intrigued by it. And so I tried it out. But, I downloaded all your stuff, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, okay, you said put this here. And then I figured out how to add music, and I was like, ooh, this is really cool.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so it's just about... taking that first step, and then the confidence builds bit by bit. You do record that first 10-second blurb, and you're like, oh, wow, look, there it is on my computer. And, now I can add music underneath it. Oh, okay. And it's not like anybody has to listen to the first thing that you make. You're just kind of like taking one little step, and the confidence is going up and up, and next thing you know, you put your first episode out.
So I think that for me was maybe my first hurdle because even my web designer was like, you like these things, do them. And I was like, no, because then you think nobody's going to listen to me. Why would anybody listen to me? And so you kind of psych yourself out that way. But, she also, my web designer at the time, who had the gall to retire, I was like, you can't retire, but was really pushing, you should do this. And for me, it was great because then I had a new baby. I couldn't go anywhere. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, sit here and make a podcast or something.
Nice.
And, not knowing that it would become like a whole other business and a whole other niche and a whole other.
Right.
It's just amazing what it's become.
Very nice. So what are some of the ways that have worked well for you when it comes to monetizing your podcast and your site and your online brand? What are some of the ways you've been able to make money with that?
Well, it's really been interesting because, for a while it was nothing. And I was like, okay, this is not going well. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like just this year, it's really kind of blossomed. I think because, one, my niche is weird. And because I'm dealing with a lot of doctors and a lot of academic people, like I said, who aren't doing podcasts and things like that. So I, trying to get to the people who basically have the money. But once you figure, I can't even say I figured it out. I actually was on Twitter and talking to someone about something or other, and they were like, oh, you should talk to this person over here, which I did. And they were like, oh, well, we're doing this and this company needs this, would you do? They're doing this thing. They're looking for a promo person. They're doing a contest. And I'm thinking, I'm not doing no stinking contest. But she was like, oh, come on. And when I looked at it, it was a 3-minute blurb. I'm like, I can do a 3-minute video in my sleep now. And so I did it, and I won the dang thing. I couldn't believe it. And it was just like, are you serious? But I think, especially in my niche, you have to think beyond not just the moms, because they're one avenue, but you have to think about some of the doctors. Like if you really want to pitch something to a doctor, who else is involved in this niche? And that's what I think I was kind of short-sighted with at first, because I just kept thinking the moms. Well, the money people are like some of these pharmaceutical companies and these, biotech companies who they have a hard time kind of interacting with the women. So what I've found is I'm kind of like this nifty little go-between person because even though like I'm a PA by training, so they don't have to explain a lot of stuff to me, but I'm also not working in that field. So I kind of can go in between, and that's really kind of what's helped me this year, understanding that not all of my income is necessarily going to come from serving women on bed rest. It can actually be in liaison with companies and liaison with foundations, because nonprofits work in they can do some things, but then there are other things they can't do. So I can partner with them, and there are things that I can't do because I'm not a nonprofit, but I can partner with them. So it's been an interesting kind of learning experience for me, because truly when I started, I thought I'm just going to serve the women. Well, then when my women weren't local, it was like, okay, well, how do I do that? So I actually have some online classes now, which is pretty interesting. So I don't know, women come from all over the place, but really keying into the fact that, a lot of these companies and things are looking for ways to interact with women on bed rest or interact with moms or new moms or what have you, but haven't quite delved into, say, Twitter or Facebook, whatever, and aren't used to that. And so then I can approach them and say, well, I do these podcasts, and they will sponsor one, which is really cool.
Oh, nice.
Or like what happened with Hologic, this one company I worked with that sent me to blog her to speak for them. And it was like, they're like,
so when you went to that blogging conference, you were actually sponsored and they sent you.
They
paid for it.
They paid for me. And
Very cool.
And I thought, well, isn't this a trip to go and tell people about my miserable pregnancies? Hey, cool. I can do that. I mean, that was, and my mom was like, well, are you nervous? I'm like, well, there's nothing to be nervous about. All I have to do is just tell them what happened.
Yeah.
And, but when I thought about it, I thought I made this so much harder because I kept thinking I had to be all this. And really what, at least in my niche, people just kind of want to know, how did you survive it? How did you get through? And companies are trying to figure out, how do we take the products or services that we have and let women know that we can help them survive it? And that little middle piece I'm finding is really where the little sweet spot is, so to speak.
Okay. So a lesson there that I'm pulling out of that is, we tell people they think they got to have like all the green lights before they hit the gas. And, you thought you had one certain part of your niche and audience figured out, but really it's kind of once you get in there and start doing it, that's where you can always kind of sidestep or tweak a little bit, or all of a sudden other people come out of the woodwork or an opportunity presents itself. But it's not, I don't think you would ever have thought about working with some of these companies or even had any of those opportunities show up if you hadn't just hit the gas in the beginning. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like you were going to figure that all out before you even got started. And it's when we get started that the creativity kicks in and the things start to converge and come together. So that's what I kind of pull out hearing from your, as we listen to your story.
Yeah, I think the other thing is really be flexible and really be open, because if I had stayed like, I'm only going to work with the moms, I would have missed like a whole lot of money. Just plain and simple. I would have missed a lot of money, and I would have missed a lot of opportunities. I would not be working with Judy Maloney if I had been, I'm only going to work with moms. Because, I was going along and I was kind of like a mom here, a mom there. Whereas, I do the study with her at the NIH. She's getting $1 million and she's going to give me, even 1%. Whoa. That's a whole different ball game where I'd have to see a whole lot of moms to pull that in. Or even with Hologic, my first thought was, I'm not going to do this little video thing. And then my brain was kind of like, why? It's 3 minutes. You can, blah, blah, blah for 3 minutes. And it sent me to San Diego. I've done roundtables for them. I'm kind of like one of their little spokespeople now. If they have someone they need to talk or something, and I always get paid. And it's like, okay, so you can't, you don't want to be too dogmatic in what you do, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I have to say, if I had just stayed with working with moms, I probably would have gone under, because I wasn't generating enough revenue with the moms to keep myself going.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson shared there. I think there's a lot to pull from that, and I mean, people start this internet business thinking about just making that bit of extra money, or maybe getting out of their job or having a bit of extra freedom or whatever. But it really is cool just to see all the other opportunities and things. If you're open, if you hit the you just get started, and then B, stay open-minded and flexible, it is pretty awesome to see the different places that it can take you, for sure. I mean, when I started Gothamcast, I had no idea that what I'd be doing 6 years later was internet business mastery per se, and have had a book published and all these other things, but that's just kind of where the path took me. Yeah. And I really enjoy what I do, so that's an excellent lesson, I think, to share.
Well, I think that's the other thing. I mean, anyone starting out, I would say just do it. I mean, and don't, like you're saying, and I think this is the other thing that hung me up with my podcast. I was trying to make them perfect. And like Pam finally said to me, she said, "You don't like it, delete it." And I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I was stressing about it. And she said, "You don't like it, delete it, record it again." And that's like realizing I didn't have to necessarily upload any recording, but I could play with it. And I did. The first one, I think I did, I don't know how many, saved them, and I finally, after I did, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them, picked one and uploaded it. Yeah. But then I had like those other 5 or 6 or whatever that I never did anything with. But, that's the thing, you can spin yourself into inertia, but just try it, try a blog, and if you don't like that one, then write another one, and then you kind of get into a rhythm, and then it's like, oh, and then you get a few comments. You're like, oh, my gosh, somebody read it. Right. And then you get like, oh, okay, well, they're saying this, or, the conversation is turning this way, so you turn that way with it. But, being fluid and being, able to move with kind of the tide is really, I think, what'll keep you going and keep you solvent and keep you in the game.
Awesome. Well, we're going to let you get back to your family, speaking of family and kids and things, but before we leave, let's have you tell our audience where they could come and find you online if they want to see some of the stuff that you're up to.
Oh, well, Mamas on Bed Rest and Beyond is at www.mamasonbedrest.com, and everything is listed, the podcast, the coaching, the online classes, the DVD, so everything is at that site. And we are on Facebook, and we're also on Twitter, and I am on StumbleUpon. Haven't found me, but I'm somewhere in there, and Google Voice, or is it Google Plus or whatever it's called, but my website is probably the best place to get me.
Okay.
And on Twitter and Facebook as well.
Okay. So mamasonbedrest.com. We'll make sure we have links to that in the show notes as well back on our site. Thank you so much for your time. It's inspiring and wonderful to hear your story and to have observed everything that's been going on with you the last couple of years. I mean, I can remember, when you just first started on Twitter and and now look, all these things that have happened just because you got started. Yeah. And there were a couple times when we're on the phone and you're like, man, I'm just not sure if this is going to work. Or like, just keep going a little more, And here you are, and that's just wonderful. And now, in turn, there's all those other people that are benefiting from you out there in the world. And so that's what I just love about this kind of entrepreneurial, spider web or satellite that just kind of goes out and can make real change in the world. So it's so cool to see you doing your part in all that. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Well, thanks for doing New Gotham, because if you hadn't done that, with this poor, bored, pregnant mom who couldn't sleep, was sitting up playing on the computer. And that's really where it started, all those years ago. I mean, that's amazing.
Who knew?
Who knew? Yep.
Yeah. Well, keep in touch and let us know your continued progress, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, and good luck with the baby.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a comment that was sent in here from Dan Shaw, and he's from right here in Portland, Oregon, where I'm at. And it's kind of a cool email. He very excitedly shot off this email to Sterling and I. And so here's what he had to say. He said, Sterling and Jay, I just wanted to quickly tell you how exciting these times are for me. I'm at a point in my life where I want to take control and have the life away from the 9 to 5. I'm also a podcast addict who listens to 10 to 15 hours of audio a week. And your podcast is the first one that I cannot listen to while I'm away from home. Why is that? Well, because every time I listen to the two of you, I get so excited to dive into the material you offer, and I end up being less productive in other areas. So, long story short, you guys are rocking it. I just signed up for the Academy, and I can't wait to see what I'm capable of. Here's to the future. That's Dan Shaw of Portland, Oregon.
Awesome. Oh my God. I just love to hear that. And I know what it's like to be a podcast addict. I still listen to a lot. Although I don't listen to ours so much anymore. Maybe because I was there. I get myself all excited listening to us. But that is
well, I'm glad we get
awesome.
Somebody excited. I mean, that's certainly one of the things we're going for in doing this show. We love knowing that we're inspiring people and making their minds buzz and wanting to make things happen. So love hearing that.
Well, yeah, and definitely let us know how the Academy goes for you, and we'll possibly put it on the breakthroughs here in another episode in a few months when you're rocking a new internet business.
Thanks, Dan, for sending in that comment.
It's time for the Internet Business Quick Tip.
So, Sterling, I wanted to ask you about this Fitbit that you've been using for a while now. We had the teaser at the beginning of the episode that we wanted to share a recommendation with people to kind of help information workers stay fit. And whether or not you're a business person yet, anybody listening to this, or internet business full time, running your own business at home, or you're still at work, these days a lot of people sit at a desk, especially at a computer, for hours on end, and it certainly can be a detriment to our health, not only our cardiovascular system not moving around enough, but then also your back and your muscles and everything. So this Fitbit, it's, I guess, something that you have been messing around with, kind of help out with staying fit and more active. So tell us a little bit about it and how it's been working for you.
Yeah, basically this thing is an upgraded pedometer, which is just it counts your steps. This one also does calories and sleep patterns, so you can put it on while you're asleep. And it basically looks like, I'm sure you could go to fitbit.com and just see really easily what it looks like, but it looks like a little money clip, real little thin money clip. But it's got a computer in it, and it shows you can push a button on it and see how many steps you've taken and stuff. And then of course they've got an integrated website that if you walk within 15 feet of the little base that's plugged into your computer, it downloads all the information and puts it on the website. So all throughout the day I can see where I'm at with my steps. And they talked about how even just doing 10,000 steps a day can definitely promote a higher health. So I started doing the 10,000 steps a day. And then also it explains, you put it on your wrist with this little band while you go to sleep, and it tells you how much you moved, get up, all that kind of stuff. And it gives you a percentage rating of how well you slept. And then you can have a record, obviously, over time. Every single night as you're doing this, it records it on the site so you can see what your sleep patterns look like and try and figure ways around it. Like, for instance, I found that when I go to bed earlier, as much as I don't like doing that, and earlier for me is probably about 11:30 as opposed to 3:30 in the morning. But when I go to bed earlier, I sleep more and much better. So, recently, for that reason and for another reason, I've started to go to bed much earlier because of seeing that information. And then again, and it's funny because on the site, it also shows you where you rank with other people your age and your weight and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm able to, try and keep at the very least, I can go for a walk in the morning. Right, like I found a walk that gives me about 5,500 steps and takes about 45 minutes. So I can throw on a podcast, go for a walk, just get out. And even I've got 2 little mini walks that come out to about the same. That if in the evening I'm going, okay, well I could watch a show or I could go read or do something like this. Sometimes instead I'll go, I'm only to 7,500 steps. I'll listen to a book and go on a walk. And that way I can keep that 10,000 steps. But it was just something that definitely, like, I had it on for a week just to see what my normal steps were. And most of the time I never even came close to 10,000 steps until I started very specifically, putting out the effort and tracking it this way.
Tracking it. Yeah. Yeah. It taps into the whole principle of what you track, you'll focus on and improve. And I like that it sounds like it's very easy and automated. And then it's also that you can compare against other people. So there's a bit of that competition or gamification a little bit mixed in there as well. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I love it. just another cool little thing that you can do to, maybe have a little more health when you start getting into this working at home. It's so easy not to, go for a walk or, because you definitely when you get really excited and you're like, oh, I've got so many things I want to do today. And, it's just something that helped me look down and go, oh, I've got 2,000 steps. That's it. Let's do something about it.
Right. I've been sedentary for 12 hours today. Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly.
So where can people check this out if they want to find out more about it?
I'm sure it's fitbit.com.
Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's fitbit.com.
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 Yep.
Yeah, that's a cool little space-agey looking device. I dig it. Very nice.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it just shows everything on it. Just the basic stuff, and then their website, man, you can log your food, track your weight, all the rest of the stuff like that. It gives you an activity score. You can, set goals and all that kind of stuff. So very cool. And they even have a new one. If you buy one now, I think it even shows you steps, and then they give you badges and stuff. Again, the stuff we've talked about before where, people respond to, incentives and badges and stuff like that in video games. Well, they do that here too. So if you get your 5,000 steps for the day, you get a little badge for it. If you get to 50 miles, you get a badge for it, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool to look and see where I'm at with that.
Nice. All right, Fitbit.com. Check it out.
If you'd like to get dozens of resources such as this one, you can find them in the Internet Business Mastery Academy, along with video tutorials showing you exactly how we use many of them. So to get your risk-free trial membership to the Academy, go to InternetBusinessMasteryAcademy.com.
You've been listening to the iconoclasts of the 9 to 5 Sterling and Jay. Sterling and Jay invite you to discover one of their most popular video programs ever, the Online Business Freedom Formula. Visit freevideogift.com right now to get instant access to this life-changing video series, pulled directly from the acclaimed Internet Business Mastery Academy membership community. Go now to freevideogift.com. Take control. Make more money. Start an internet business today.